Welcome to Forgotten Histories Uncovered. Before we dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're supporting this channel and encouraging me to keep researching and bringing you more epic and hidden pieces of history. Your support means the world, and together we'll continue uncovering the forgotten stories that deserve to be told. Picture this. It's the dawn of the 19th century. The world is changing at a breathtaking pace. Steam engines roar, factories rise, empires expand, and revolutions shake nations. And in the midst of it all, a young girl, born into a broken, scandal-filled royal family, is about to take the throne of the most powerful empire on earth. Her name was Alexandrina Victoria. From a lonely childhood under suffocating control, to her rise as queen at just 18. From her passionate marriage to Prince Albert, to her devastating widowhood, from surviving assassination attempts to ruling over the height of the British Empire. This is not just the story of a monarch. This is the story of a woman who became a symbol of morality, of empire, of change, and who gave her name to an entire age. This is the story of Queen Victoria. But before she became the symbol of an empire, she was just a lonely little girl. To understand Queen Victoria, we have to start at the beginning. Victoria was born on May 24th, 1819, at Kensington Palace in London. Her birth came at a time of royal crisis. King George III, the monarch who had lost America, was old, insane, and incapable of ruling. His sons, who should have secured the future, were scandalous, irresponsible, and childless. The only legitimate heir, Princess Charlotte, had tragically died in childbirth in 1817. In desperation, George III's sons scrambled to marry and produce heirs. One of them, Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, wed a German widow, Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. Just months later, their only child was born, little Alexandrina Victoria. But tragedy struck early. Her father died when she was just 8 months old, leaving the baby princess in the care of her widowed mother and under the growing influence of her mother's ambitious advisor, Sir John Conroy. Together, the Duchess of Kent and Conroy designed what became known as the Kensington System. It was a strict, suffocating set of rules designed to keep Victoria isolated, obedient, and completely dependent on them. She slept in her mother's room until she was 18. She was never allowed to be alone. She could not walk downstairs without someone holding her hand. She was shielded from relatives who might give her independence. Victoria later described her childhood as rather melancholy. Her companions were few: her half-sister Theodora, who eventually married and moved away, her little dog Dash, and over 130 dolls that she dressed by hand. But even in this lonely existence, Victoria's spirit burned bright. At the age of 12, her beloved governess, Baroness Layson, showed her a family tree. And for the first time, Victoria understood she was next in line for the throne. Shocked, she burst into tears. That night, she wrote in her diary, "I cried much on learning it, but I will be good." From that moment, she carried herself differently. The little girl under strict control began preparing herself for greatness. And soon the world would discover just how strong-willed she really was. By the late 1830s, it was clear Victoria would be the next monarch. When her uncle King William IV lay dying in June 1837, he famously declared that he wanted to live just long enough for Victoria to reach her 18th birthday, so that there would be no regency under her mother and Conroy. He got his wish. On the morning of June 20th, 1837, at 6 o'clock, Victoria was woken by her mother. Two men, Lord Conyngham and the Archbishop of Canterbury, were waiting downstairs. When she appeared, they bowed and addressed her. "Your Majesty." At just 18, Victoria was now Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Her very first act as queen was small, but symbolic. She asked for 1 hour, just one, alone, without her mother or Conroy watching her. For the first time in her life, she was free. Her coronation, on June 28, 1838, was a magnificent spectacle at Westminster Abbey. Thousands crowded the streets of London. She wore a white satin gown embroidered with gold, And though the ceremony was plagued by minor mishaps, including the archbishop forcing the coronation ring onto the wrong finger, the people adored her. But the early years of her reign were not without scandal. Guided by her first prime minister, the charming Lord Melbourne, she leaned heavily on the Whigs. When the Tories under Robert Peel came to power in 1839, Victoria resisted Peel's demand that she replace her Whig ladies-in-waiting with Tory women. She refused, sparking the bedchamber crisis and forcing Peel to resign. It was a bold emotional move, but one that revealed her inexperience. Worse still was the Lady Flora Hastings affair. When a lady-in-waiting developed a swelling in her stomach, Victoria, influenced by gossip, believed she was pregnant by Sir John Conroy. She spread the rumor, only for it to be revealed that Lady Flora had a fatal tumor. The scandal backfired, painting Victoria as cruel and reckless. Yet the people's love for her only grew stronger, especially after June 1840, when a young man named Edward Oxford fired 2 pistols at her carriage. She was unhurt, calm, and defiant, and her popularity soared. The little girl who had been shielded from the world was proving she had the courage to face it head-on. While Victoria grew into her role as queen, one figure entered her life who would change everything: her cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Victoria first met him in 1836, when she was just 17. She thought him handsome but too shy. When he returned in 1839, her feelings deepened. Just days after his arrival, she took the unusual step of proposing to him herself, something only she, as queen, could do. They married on February 10, 1840, at the Chapel Royal, St. James's Palace. Victoria wore a white gown trimmed with orange blossoms, a choice that would set the fashion trend for brides for generations to come. Their marriage was not just one of convenience. It was a deep, passionate love story. Victoria adored Albert, calling their wedding day the happiest of my life. Together, they had 9 children over 17 years. Despite Victoria's complaints that pregnancy and childbirth were the shadow side of marriage, Albert quickly became more than just her husband. Though Victoria was queen, Albert became her closest political advisor, managing state papers, organizing reforms, and guiding her toward a more stable and respected monarchy. At Osborne House on the Isle of Wight and at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, they built private retreats where they could escape court life and raise their growing family. But life was not without tension. Victoria could be fiery and controlling, while Albert was disciplined and methodical. Yet their partnership endured, built on devotion, intellect, and a shared vision for the monarchy. The 1840s and 1850s were some of the most turbulent years of Victoria's reign. In Ireland, the potato famine killed over 1 million people and forced another million to flee. Victoria donated generously to relief efforts and even became known in Ireland as the Famine Queen, though critics argued her government's response was woefully inadequate. At home, working-class protests known as the Chartist movement demanded more democracy. In 1848, fearing revolution, Victoria and Albert retreated to Osborne House until the unrest subsided. Yet there were triumphs too. The Great Exhibition of 1851, organized by Albert, was a dazzling showcase of industry and invention. Held in the glittering Crystal Palace, it displayed 13,000 exhibits from around the world and drew over 6 million visitors. It symbolized Britain's status as the workshop of the world. Meanwhile, Britain's empire grew ever larger. The Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, marked the first time Victoria publicly supported her troops, visiting hospitals and instituting the Victoria Cross for bravery. In 1857, the bloody Indian Rebellion led to the dissolution of the East India Company and the formal beginning of the British Raj, placing India directly under Crown rule. Technological marvels also marked this era. Victoria was the first monarch to ride a train, the first to be photographed, and the first to communicate instantly by telegraph. She and Albert embodied a monarchy that was both modern and traditional, standing firm while the world raced forward. Then came the greatest tragedy of Victoria's life. In December 1861, Prince Albert died suddenly, likely from typhoid fever. He was only 42 years old. Victoria was devastated beyond words. She wore black mourning clothes for the rest of her life, She had Albert's rooms kept exactly as they were, his clothes laid out each day, as if he might return. She withdrew almost entirely from public life, earning the nickname the Widow of Windsor. Her absence fueled Republican sentiment, and the monarchy itself seemed in danger. But slowly, with the help of political allies like Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, Victoria re-emerged. Disraeli flattered her, calling her the Empress of India, a title she formally adopted in 1876. Public ceremonies like her Golden Jubilee in 1887 and Diamond Jubilee in 1897 restored her image as the beloved matriarch of empire. Still, rumors swirled about her private life. Her close friendship with her Scottish servant John Brown sparked gossip that he was more than just a companion. Satirical pamphlets even referred to her as Mrs. Brown. Victoria dismissed the rumors but relied on Brown's loyalty and companionship until his death in 1883. In her later years, she survived 7 assassination attempts, multiple health scares, and the challenges of keeping peace in Europe as her vast family spread across the continent's royal houses. By the end of her life, she was called the Grandmother of Europe. By the turn of the 20th century, Queen Victoria was an old woman. She suffered from rheumatism, failing eyesight, and required a wheelchair. Yet she continued her duties, reading state papers and corresponding with her sprawling family. In January 1901, while staying at Osborne House, her health sharply declined. Surrounded by her children and grandchildren, including the German Kaiser Wilhelm II, Victoria died peacefully on January 22, 1901, at the age of 81. Her funeral was held with military honors, as she requested. She was buried beside Albert at the Royal Mausoleum at Frogmore, reunited with the man she had loved so deeply. Her death marked the end of an era. The Victorian age, a time of empire, industry, morality, and progress, was over. Her son, Edward VII, ushered in a new century, the Edwardian era. Victoria's legacy endures. She transformed the monarchy into a symbolic, stabilizing institution. She oversaw the expansion of Britain into the greatest empire the world had ever seen. She left behind a dynasty that would dominate European politics, for better and for worse, well into the 20th century. But above all, she remains unforgettable because she was not just a queen. She was a woman of fierce will, deep passions, and profound grief. A woman who, despite her crown, was profoundly human. And that is why, more than a century after her death, we still remember her not only as a monarch, but as the very embodiment of an age. And that is the full story of Queen Victoria. If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more epic stories of the past. Which figure should we cover next? Let me know in the comments.